This is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint. Now, your host, James Just.
And welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint. I'm James Just. With me is Mr. Richard Fields today, from our home studios. Richard, it's been an eventful week since the last time I talked to you. So what do you got? What's on your mind today?
Well, I've got a new report. I'll just go ahead and tell you what's on my mind with that. How's that?
You got it. Go for it.
Okay, here we go. This is Richard Fields with this week's report from the fields. Angela McArdle, the chair of the Libertarian National Committee, is doing victory laps. She claims that Donald J. Trump has fulfilled the promises he made to libertarians at their national convention last spring by fulfilling his promise to appoint a libertarian to his cabinet by appointing Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be Secretary of Health and Human Services, and by, as promised, pardoning Ross Ulbricht, the founder of the Silk Road website. Not quite so fast. RFK Jr. demonstrated that he can talk the libertarian talk when he spoke to last spring's LP convention. I watched the speech. He talks a good libertarian line, but walk the walk, not so much. He spent most of his adult life as an activist lawyer pursuing ultra-green environmental goals, which are sometimes antithetical to property rights and other libertarian priorities. And it's one thing to call out as unwarranted a government mandate on an experimental vaccine, read COVID. It's another and potentially dangerous to your health thing to call out all vaccines as bad things. I, for one, am really glad to have taken my childhood polio shots. And while most libertarians would agree that a pardon of the dread Pirate Roberts should occur, his worthiness to be pardoned pales in comparison to, say, Edward Snowden. Ulbricht's website facilitated the sale of illegal narcotics and services. Drugs and services between willing buyers and sellers should not be illegal. Changing the laws that make them illegal seems to me to have a better optical look than thumbing your nose at those bad laws. What we're doing now kind of reinforces the cynical criticism of libertarians as just conservatives who like to get high. Edward Snowden, on the other hand, single-handedly and at great personal risk, exposed massive law-breaking on the part of our national intelligence apparatus and their subcontractors. It is because of Snowden's whistleblowing that we know of the massive data vacuum of personal information that our nation's intelligence agencies have the ability to focus on any one of us. When Snowden saw the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, lie under oath to Congress, he decided to release what he knew to trustworthy journalists. He escaped to Russia, of all places, and ultimately was given asylum and eventually citizenship there. He's the guy the Libertarian Party should have suggested Trump pardon. It's not too late. Trump has hinted that he is open to brokering an end of hostilities between Ukraine and Russia. It's not inconceivable that a pardon for Snowden could be part of that negotiation. Ulbricht was a website operator who facilitated dealing in narcotics. Like all drug dealers and other criminals who have no unwilling victims, he should be pardoned. Snowden laid bare that our own government has been and continues to illegally spy on American citizens without warrant or cause. He's a national hero. He should not only be pardoned, but also awarded the Medal of Honor. I'm Richard Fields, and that's this week's report from the fields. See you again next week with perhaps we'll have a report on the just breaking resignation of what's her name? Angela McArdle no longer has announced that she will, at some point in the future, resign as LNC chairman.
Yeah, it's been hopefully we get to that. We have time to get to that case in particular. But it's been an eventful week for libertarians and the country. You know, we'll go back to that free Ross versus free Snowden debate, right? We've talked about it before about freeing Eric Snowden should be the one should have been the first one to be pardoned. Shouldn't have been Ross. I have no problems with them freeing Ross. I'm all for it. We all support it. But the person you should have been arguing for, you're right, would have been Eric Snowden. That's kind of goes without saying.
Yeah, and Biden actually beat him to it with the pardon of Julian Assange. He would be higher on the pecking order than Snowden, or than Albrecht, as far as I'm concerned. Both of them were releasing information that laid bare the machinations of the deep state, which is a good thing. That's something that we all need to know what our government is doing to us. And it's real obvious what the government is doing to us when it comes to the drug war. We see our friends and neighbors go to jail, unfortunately, for victimless crimes. But when the government spies on us, that's kind of something that goes on behind the scenes, and it's got a lot more nasty repercussions than buying pot from the neighborhood Red Pirate Roberts.
Yeah, and I have some mixed feelings about one person trying to take any form of credit for freeing Ross or anybody else in this particular matter, because even if you may have been the person who happened to be the one to push it over the edge, it didn't get to the edge without a lot of people's effort. And it seems to be a little crass to kind of take the effort from all those people who worked all those years, from his mother to everybody else in the freedom movement, in the Free Ross movement, to kind of come in and say, yeah, well, I pushed it over the finish line. Well, no, you didn't. It's taking credit that you don't deserve. And rather than saying we appreciate that he followed through on his word, and you thank everybody for all their hard work, you kind of pat yourself on the back. And I don't know, it doesn't sit well with me, Richard. That's what doesn't sit well with me in this whole thing. So, all right. So Trump has been busy with his pen, kind of like, Obama went and talked about his pen and his phone. Trump is kind of following through on that mantra there. He's trying to change birthright citizenship. He's trying to kind of reinvent what the Constitution says. And listening to Democrats complain about he's trying to reinvent the Constitution. Well, you guys do it with the First and Second Amendment all the time. And now you're complaining because Trump wants to do it with the 14th Amendment. You're correct in this particular case, but you don't, those in glass houses throwing stones is kind of absurd. The whole absurdity of the whole thing.
Us libertarians kind of, living in a stone hut over on in the outskirts. We're the only one that can throw stones and do it without serious repercussions because we don't have any power anyway. So we can do it. But you're right. I mean, when it comes to the Constitution, you're looking at Biden, who willy-nilly and shamelessly tried to create what do you call it? The Department of Public Misinformation or some damn thing. And he behind the scenes, and even sometimes not so much behind the scenes, strong-armed Facebook, Twitter before Musk, LinkedIn, YouTube, all of the rest of the social media into strictly and just terribly misrepresenting and censoring the news on COVID, on Hunter Biden's laptop, on essentially anything that the Democratic Party didn't want in the mainstream news media. They were able to get it out of the mainstream news media by threatening punitive regulation upon the social media sites and for that matter, the media. It's no mistake that the New York Times and all of the media mainstream media who essentially take their lead are able to maintain that by essentially being the Pravda of the United States. They're the mouthpiece of the Democratic Party. And when it comes to censorship, the Democrats have been absolutely awful. Now, will Trump be any better, or will he simply try to use those same censorship methods against his enemies? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, this is one of these things where the Constitution is clear. A judge has already blocked the executive order, right? While we go through the process, he's already said you can't implement it because, of course, not. It's one of those things that if it's so obvious that the executive order is going to be rejected through the court system, kind of like Biden's student loans executive orders, right?
Yeah.
They're so clearly, they clearly didn't have the power to do it. There clearly isn't the power to do this. So why are they really doing it?
Well,
everybody knows that this thing's going to get kicked out of, it's going nowhere. Even Trump knows this is going nowhere.
Yeah.
So why is he doing it? What's the whole point?
It's all about playing to his nativist base. It's about playing to the segment of the MAGA crowd that thinks immigration is a terrible thing. And of course, it's interesting to watch the whole MAGA thing going on right now. On the one hand, you've got Musk, who has a brain, and then you've got the non-thinking part of the MAGA movement, who thinks that the immigrants are coming here and stealing our jobs, which is prima facie false. It's simply not true. Statistically, now, yeah, you can find somebody who has lost a job and an immigrant has taken that job at a lower wage. Yeah, that'll happen. But as far as immigrants coming here and taking our jobs, no, it doesn't happen. Whenever an immigrant moves to this country, not only is he a wage earner, but he is a wage spender. So it's a win-win proposition, or at best, a zero gain, zero loss. Everybody that comes here from another country comes here to work, is also coming here to consume. So jobs are, the job creation or loss is essentially zero. The only hole in that argument is when people come to this country to go on welfare, which was encouraged mightily by the Biden administration, putting people up in New York hotels and giving them food stamps and free phone, I don't know, whatever they are, all of the gimmies that they were given in order to basically build up the Democratic voter rolls. That kind of thing obviously is not what libertarians are talking about when they say we want to have free immigration. We want to have free immigration in the pre-1930s model, where anybody can come as long as they understand they're going to have to work for a living.
Yeah,
real simple. You want to work for a living, come on over.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the difference between, that's really where the rub comes. If it wasn't for people watching, so many people watching free stuff being given to illegal immigrants or immigrants of any form, really, it doesn't really matter, while they can't get their $750 for their disaster relief, it's offensive to people, and it should be.
Yeah.
And it should be.
But what's offensive is the welfare state, not the fact that immigrants are taking advantage of it. The natives are taking advantage of it just as much.
Yeah. Well, but there is an argument. At least you're here. At least theoretically, your parents pay taxes and your family pays taxes and all that kind of thing. At least theoretically, it's the whole system. Is when you watch other people take advantage of it and you can't even get your basic services that they allegedly promise you. That's when it becomes the problem. When we're paying more, receiving less, while other people are, stepping in latecomers to the party and getting all the benefits.
Yeah,
we paid for it. So we had a big conversation about executive orders, and Trump issued a lot of executive orders, right? From he pulled out of the Paris Accords, he's pulled out of WHO, he's ended DEI and government organizations. Right, it's the whole line list of them. And on these executive orders that are repealing other executive orders, I'm not so worried about. Okay, fine. But that's
what most of them are. Most of them are just repealing a Biden executive orders that went, that were wrong initially, and so he's repealing a wrong executive order. That's fine. But will Trump stop there? I obviously not, because he's trying to change the Constitution through executive order.
Yeah, and the thing is that they've all tried to do it, and it's like at some point are they going to realize, okay, if we're afraid of Trump abusing the executive orders, which we should be, maybe we should be afraid of everybody abusing executive orders. And maybe the problem is that rather than these executive board orders being, okay, here's what our priorities are. We're reshifting priorities. That's fine. That's what executive orders really should be. Here, I'm now in charge of the bureaucracy. Here's now your focus. That's what executive orders should be. They shouldn't be changing fundamental laws, rewriting how we interact with society, which is what they've been trying to do for decades.
It's interesting that the Chevron reversal at the Supreme Court a few months ago, that might change a little bit of that, because it's no longer do executive agencies, which is where executive orders are enforced, no longer do they have the ability to say, if challenged in court, no longer do they have the ability to say, well, we're the experts, you got to listen to us. The Supreme Court has said, no. Everything is subject to court review on whether it's constitutional or not. So we may see gradually a diminishment in the power or the force of executive orders. It may move in the direction that you're talking about. Well, here's what we think should happen. We can't make it happen, but this is the way we think things should be.
Yeah, I understand the need of presidents to tell a bureaucracy, okay, this is the priorities, this is our new priorities, this is what we're focusing on. Okay, everybody needs to do that. Anytime a new executive comes in, you have to tell kind of the underling staff, here's what we're focusing on, here's our new morals, here's our new guideposts. Great, that needs to be done. But yeah, trying to change the Constitution or invent law or wipe away debt, or well, not even wipe away debt, transfer debt from one group of people to their larger group of people in terms of like student loans. That's just patently absurd. And all right, so we want to talk about patently absurd, Richard. Here's one. Broken clocks and strange bedfellows and whatnot. Oh God, I can't pronounce her name. Ilhan Omar?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. I apologize for brutalizing names. She's pushing Republicans specifically to pass nationwide marijuana legalization.
Well, didn't that happen back in 1918 or 1920 or something like that? In a long time. Look at the dateline on that story. I think that's an old story.
Yeah, but it's not that old. She's doing it again.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, sure. Kudos to Ilhan Omar or whatever her name is. That we should be getting rid of the monstrosity that's on the federal books, which is that marijuana of all drugs is a Schedule 1, right up there with heroin and opium and the rest of the very dangerous drugs. It's not. It's simply not. And getting rid of that making that very simple change in laws would go a long way to moderating the drug war. Of course, we want to end the drug war, but getting started at moderating it is certainly a move in the right direction.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about Trump's, executive order now calling the cartels a terrorist organization so you can use the military on them.
Yeah, going back to a 1897 law or something, some archaic law trying to justify it. It must be nice to be king.
But the way to end those drug cartels is to end the profit.
Yeah,
and you end the profit by making it easy to sell them legally.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the way to end these things. And broken clocks and strange bedfellows happen. Okay, so here's the next one, Richard. We've got in 2024 the United States ranked 25th in the world for economic freedom. And third in the Americas region, Richard.
Who beat it? Who beat us in the Americas? Argentina? Who?
All right, let's see if we can figure that out. Population, economic freedoms. I don't remember off the top of my head. And it's
Trudeau's Canada. I don't understand that. But it's very, very clear. We have a country now where economic freedom just barely moves. I think it's 71, and 70 is the
70.1. Yes.
Yeah, 70 is the cutoff for actual free economy. Of course, this is the Heritage Foundation doing it, and they're pretty good on economic issues. So I don't distrust their methodology or anything like that, but it just shows how far we have come in the wrong direction over the last 100, 200 years, from a essentially laissez-faire economy that in the 19th century was absolutely phenomenal as far as economic growth is concerned. It wasn't that bad up until just the last, 20 or 30 years, where the growth rate went from 3 to 4 to 5% down to under 1 or 2%. Why? Because of a myriad of regulations, primarily a myriad of regulations and overtaxation and the resultant inflation from printing money in order to finance the whole boondoggle.
Yeah, it's apparently where we're best at is property rights, and we're mediocre kind of everywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it essentially is what it is. So, but we're not surprised, are we? We've seen this time and time again where they're trying to control. Everybody likes to spread the big F word around, but you define that as the centralized control of the economy and culture, and more pick a political party. That's what's happening.
Well, yeah, I know. You're talking about the classical dictionary definition of fascism, which is government control of a free economy. In other words, assets are owned privately, but the government tells these private operators what they can do with those assets. So you've got corporations that own everything, not the government. That's when socialism, when the government owns everything. But with fascism, the government tells corporations what they can do. And that's another definition for that is crony capitalism. Who gets to own the monopolies? Whoever has the closest ties with the dictator, or with the Benito or Adolf, or whoever is running the government. That's who gets to make the profits. Everybody else is pushed to the sidelines. That's not capitalism. That's fascism. And fascism is simply a way for corporations to reap the benefit of centralized control rather than the government itself.
You need the desire to control the culture as well. Crony capitalism, they don't give a 2 cents about the culture. They don't care what happens in the culture as long as they can make a buck off of it.
Yeah.
In fascism, they want to also control the culture, dictate the culture, and it's happening on both sides of the political spectrum at the moment. So it's a strange thing, and we're watching it. These kind of lines, these overall economic freedom lines, you can, kind of believe him, Richard. I kind of believe him. It's that, it's got this little line where it's dropped considerably.
But what's interesting, I mean, we can drown ourselves in pessimism and say, look at how much the government is doing to destroy economic freedom, and all of those fears and all of those predictions and observations are correct. But you can also look at the fact that SpaceX has caught 2 skyscraper-sized rockets on stilts as they re-enter the atmosphere. They've done it twice now, if I'm not mistaken. Same rocket. And you can look at the fact that the payload of a rocket going into space has been reduced by, I think it's 99% from SpaceX compared to the NASA programs that went before. And you can look at the fact that nuclear reactors are now possible to be basically mass manufactured and transported on a rail car, modular nuclear reactors, as opposed to the multi-billion or even trillion-dollar plants that we think of when we think of nuclear power. So there's a whole lot of stuff that's going on in the so far lightly regulated technical sector that is going great guns. Cryptocurrency is another example of that. We're seeing a whole lot of progress in artificial intelligence, lightly regulated so far. And it's interesting. I'll give Trump credit for this. He wants to lightly regulate or not regulate very much at all the whole AI sector of the economy. Biden wanted to totally regulate it. He wanted to make it make it completely under the thumb of the federal government, so that they would have total control over artificial intelligence. So you can try to box in the economy, but the boxes can very easily be broken by, in the case of drug laws, by the Dread Pirate Roberts, by in technology, by technocrats like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and the rest of the multi-billionaire tech pioneers. They may or may not be libertarian, but by golly, they are smart dudes, and they are figuring out ways to grow the economy and grow the world that we live in spite of all of the things the governments, not only here, but across the world, try to do to rein them in. And at the same time, you've got governments like Argentina under Milei that are saying, hey, we have an alternative. It's an old-fashioned one, but it worked then, and it's working now. Come join us. And the next phase of Argentina, the first phase is to get the runaway state under control. His next phase will probably be to welcome in investment in all kinds of different things and create a boom not only in natural resources and agriculture, which he already has, but also a boom in tech.
Yeah, I think that's Argentina is the kind of the hope of the future, because no matter how bad you get, it can actually be fixed. None of this stuff we've got is unfixable. You can actually change the direction of it, and that's the good thing. But is it, Richard? We talked about the resignation of Angela McArdle at the top of the show. We're going to end with that. With Angela, it is a strange time to be a libertarian, right? The party's in disarray, even at the local levels. You have Donald Trump, who's on with his left hand, he's slashing some government and doing some things we're kind of happy with. On the other hand, he's acting as the authoritarian we're afraid of.
He has no moral compass. He has no core, no ideology. He's strictly transactional. What can get me more accolades? What can make people love me more? What can give me more power? That's all he's about.
Yeah, and so you've been a part of the libertarian movement for a long time, Richard, longer than even I have, and I've been part of it for a good 20-something years. This is not the first time we've had these kind of existential crises, but is there something different this time? That's hard to say. I think the way I look at it is philosophically, and if you explore people's motivations on an individual level, most people are probably, I'd say 30-40% of people are a core libertarian in the sense that they agree with the credo: don't steal things, don't take other people's stuff, don't hurt people, and don't be a liar. Keep your word. Those are the three. If you do those three things, you're essentially a libertarian. But where people break down, or where that whole thing breaks down, is, well, if we could hire somebody else to steal for us, namely the government, or we can hire somebody else to kill our enemies, namely the drug dealers or whoever. Or if I wish I could hire someone to give us more time. We are out of time. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next week. Please remember to love everybody and have a good night.
Good.
This is Gail Morgan thanking you for watching the Libertarian Counterpoint each Thursday at 8 p.m. Channel 17 on Comcast, on YouTube, and on Facebook. We invite you to come again next week for the Libertarian Counterpoint.